on space in teaching. And she was one of the several from the nation selected to train as a commercial space astronaut. And I don't know a whole lot about it, but I'm sure Rachel will tell us a lot more. And it sounds really exciting and interesting and really out of space. So please, Rachel, welcome her. Thank you. Thank you.
So it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. It's funny because I present all over the nation, and I have never had the opportunity to come present in my backyard of Hartland. It's great. I'm sitting there going, wow, I'm usually used to flying across to California, and I'm driving a 5-minute drive. Pretty awesome, so it's great. But again, my name is Rachel Manzer. I am one of 7 teachers that have been selected to fly into space on commercial spaceflight, and I live right here in Hartland, so I'm right here in your backyard. But we're gonna start off with this gentleman right here, Robert Goddard. He is known for his invention of the first liquid-fueled rocket. Now that was way back in 1926. What would he say if he knew that since 2010, 518 people have gone to space? Think about the Wright brothers, known for inventing the first powered flight in 1903. What would they say if they knew that 87,000 flights occur every single day? So we think of Sir Edmund Hillary. Successfully climbed Mount Everest in 1953. What would he say if he knew that 2,700 individuals have done that so far? So what would you say if I told you that every single person in this room, regardless of your age, can have this view?
Costs so much.
It's just the paycheck. Because it could be your picture there, not just mine. It could be every single one of you picture on that page. Because you see, commercial spaceflight industry is well on its way. And in fact, if you start looking at where they are located, there is commercial spaceports being built across the United States, in addition to that, also across the entire world. In fact, one of the ones that's closest to being done is right here, actually right out there in New Mexico, Spaceport, New Mexico. So imagine, instead of getting on an airplane to go where you need to be, you go to this airport that is being built, you go onto your spacecraft, and up into space you can go. Because that's the reality. That's what's happening now. There is a space race occurring. It's not between Russia and other countries. It's a space race with commercial spaceflight. And who's going to be there first? So let's look at some of these companies that are on their way. Virgin Galactic. Have you ever heard of Virgin Galactic before? Records, airplanes, space.
Oh, yes,
They have a spacecraft that has already gone into space. Many of you may know Spaceship One that went up into space and came back. Well, they're working on their one that's going to bring lots of people to space. And let me show you what that's going to look like. Minute to get started. So Virgin Galactic already has their spacecraft built. They're just working on their rocket. And in fact, they're already doing drop testing. So this isn't something that's way out in the future. This is something that's happening now and will be flying probably in a couple of years. So in just a moment, we're going to see the spacecraft spacecraft, see what it looks like, see how it's going to be different than what you know from the space shuttle. So this is out at Mojave, the Mojave Desert. And what you're going to be looking at is an animation of what is going to occur. Right here you can see the plane. In the middle is actually the spacecraft. The spacecraft is held up by this very big plane. The plane looks like it has two cockpits. Spacecraft in the middle. You're going to see that it's going to launch, for lack of a better word, fly, just like a regular airplane. Pretty wild design, huh? Pretty amazing. Again, this is out of Mojave. It's going to take off just at the Mojave Airstrip, Air and Spaceport. But also realize it is Virgin Galactic that's building the spaceport in New Mexico. So they'll actually be launching from there. Airplane goes up. It's going to reach a certain altitude, and it's going to drop the spacecraft. It's getting there. Remember, spacecraft is in the middle. Has 8 passengers on that spacecraft. Two pilots and 6 passengers. Each passenger has 2 windows, because I mean you don't want to ruin that view. But above and below, everybody has a perfect view. Spacecraft is dropped. All of a sudden, you're going to see the rockets kick in. And there you go. Look like fun? Oh yeah. So the airplane is going to go back and land. Spacecraft is already up there. That quick. Have I flown yet? No. These spacecraft are going to be flying probably within the next couple of years. You see all the windows? So very shortly what you're going to see is the passengers inside. Again, this is an animation. They just hit 0G, microgravity. Why do you need chairs anymore? What's the purpose of chairs? Chairs recline in, and everyone is going to unbuckle and experience 0G. Now this is interesting. You're going to have all these people that are going to be floating around in this spacecraft, these 6 passengers. You have your 2 pilots that are going to stay buckled. You have 6 passengers that are going to be floating around. It makes it interesting if you want to do any serious research there with all the feet and arms everywhere. But it's a view of a lifetime. So one of the trainings I've actually gone through is called distraction training. Because again, if you have everybody flying around or anything like that, or you're trying to get something done, you need to stay focused on what you're doing, you kind of have to ignore all the somersaults that are going around, etc. Because the space flights we're talking about are not necessarily only for research, but they're also for space tourism, meaning that people can purchase flights, go to the space airport, and basically take off and have their journey of a lifetime.
So this is the type of flight that we don't have.
Maybe. I'm going to show you some other companies. The interesting thing about being selected is that of the 7 of us that were selected, we don't know who's going to fly first, and we don't know who we're flying with. So this could possibly be one of the companies. Does that look like fun? No, when I fly, I'll be flying student experiments up there. So I will have serious work I need to get done. We're telling everybody, okay, time is up. Need to get back, buckle down in your seats because you're coming in for entry. Now, as you look at entry, basically it's going to come in like an airplane and land just like on the runway. And that's it.
How long?
this one's approximately 2 hours. 2 to 4 hours is what the range is for these flights. Then comes just back in as a glider. So I'm gonna stop it here. So that's Virgin Galactic. The next company I'd like to highlight too is a company called Xcor Aerospace. You can see that their spacecraft looks a little bit different. And in fact, when talking, I go out to California all the time, they're out in California, their spacecraft is already on the hangar floor. They're working on it, so that's how close these vehicles are. Now, Xcor spacecraft is going to look a little bit different and fly a little bit different.
Experience is planned personally before we get with it. So, flying with us on board the lakes is more than just an hour flight. It's a whole set of different experiences, which in and of themselves is great. All the different directions we're flying the show, all those spaces of flying, they're there. It's the fact that we love it, pilots, back, this is like great stuff. Person gets a ride aboard the lakes, we sit side by side, slightly after we wear pressure systems.
It's about a minute after engine layer to supersonic.
So we anticipate about a 75-degree flight path, and we press back to that 2.5 G's or so.
Keep going faster and faster and steeper and steeper.
Going straight up. It's happening early.
78,000 feet. The sky starts to turn dark by 100,000 feet.
So once we get to main engine trouble, about 3 meters.
And then you have several minutes to enjoy the view. Wait for yourselves.
So as we're talking about the view, you can see that their spacecraft is a little bit different. Two-seater, that's it, pilot, passenger. Oh, there's a lot of room there for cargo, for experiments, for things to run like that. The number one question I get is, well, what is the cost? So if a person wants to go into space, what is the cost of doing something like this? Well, for Virgin Galactic, it's about $200,000. For Xcor, it's about $98,000. But here's the thing. Think about when the first automobiles came out. Not everybody had them at once, but once people started buying them, the price started to go down. So this is happening. This is our future. We're gonna see this in the next couple of years. So that is Xcor, and that's also a company that I could possibly be flying with. Now this one, SpaceX, is going to be in the news a tremendous amount this week because SpaceX is a commercial space company that has a contract with NASA that is going to be resupplying the International Space Station. Their first launch, they've had many test launches. Their first launch to the International Space Station is on April 30th. This is a historic launch where a commercial space flight is now going to resupply. It's huge. And for the school that I teach at Annie Fisher STEM Magnet School in Hartford, we actually have an experiment that is going to be going up on SpaceX and to the International Space Station. So we're all pretty excited about this launch. It's a historic launch, and make sure you watch the newspapers for it. Right now they're contracted with NASA to just do supplies, cargo. However, they also have developed a crew capsule. And so they have what's called the Dragon capsule. And the Dragon capsule can carry 8 passengers and will be on that Falcon launch. So it's definitely something to watch. It will be an uncrewed mission, but they're definitely testing out that crew capsule because right now we don't have anything to get astronauts up to the space station except for the Russian Soyuz. So hopefully, maybe SpaceX could be able to fill that void. Now here's the thing also, if you want to launch something in space, when the space shuttle was in operation, it was about $10,000 a pound. Well, with commercial space flight now, the prices have gone down dramatically. Maston is another company that's out there that's only going to be launching cargo to space, not launching people. $250 a kilogram. Schools can afford that. Think about what this could do for education. Students could be able to fly their experiments in space, get them back, and be able to afford, schools could be able to afford to do that. It's going to change how science is done. So you might be saying, well, suborbital spacecraft, commercial spacecraft, well, the Air Force is also working on a plane and have already flown it. But that's about all I know because it is kept pretty quiet. So that leads to my role. 2 years ago, I was very, very fortunate to be selected from teachers from around the United States to be one of 7 teachers that are going to be going in space on commercial spaceflight. So one of those companies, I will hopefully be riding with soon. So what have we done for training to get us ready? Well, the purpose of the Teachers in Space program is basically to fly the teachers and put them back in the classrooms, because they feel that if we can fly the teachers, put them back in the classrooms, well, it's going to inspire students to go into science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields. So I have been very busy in training these past couple of years, and then taking that training out to schools and teachers across the nation. So one of the training I have done is in gliders. We were learning how to fly gliders out where the Air Force trains their other people to fly gliders, out in California, out in Mojave. The gentleman that you see right there should look familiar because he was in the video that you saw with X-Corps. He is X-Corps Chief Test Pilot, former shuttle commander, Rick Searfoss. He was our trainer. And here you can see the gliders we were out in, and myself and Colonel Searfoss.
Well, my name is Rick Searfoss. I'm a former space shuttle astronaut and mission commander, and also glider pilot. Today I had an exciting opportunity to fly 7 Hartland teachers in space to give them a little bit of a feel of what it's going to be like when they fly on one of the suborbital vehicles, at least for recovery.
There I am.
Because that would be glided flight, coming back to the runway just the way one of these gliders that you see in the background comes back, and just the way that the space shuttle comes back. I think this is a very valuable experience across the board for teachers in space, not just flying in the glider today, but as part of a broader program to build their aviation experience, backgrounds, and all the things that will go into the suborbital space experience, which they will eventually have. And then to share that with kids across the country, thousands upon thousands, as is leverage to get out how great of experiences you can have and opportunities you can have if you just turn around and focus a little bit on the math and science and learning the things that you need to learn to be competitive and be successful in this very high-tech future world that we all are part of. So I think it's a great program, Teachers in Space, and it was great fun for me to go hop on a glider this morning and take these folks flying. You know, the pathway to space begins in the imagination, and the way to light that path for the children of the future is in the schools and to spark their imaginations. And they will join with us in carrying us into the future in space.
Oh, God, thank you so much.
So that's part of the training I've done. We've also done training on high-performance aerobatic aircraft. It was awesome. I mean, think about it. I mean, what you guys, do you want to guys do barrel rolls and loops and upside down? Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So this is the pits that I flew on, and I flew all the performance, but I had a pilot in the back of me, talking me through everything. So what you're going to see is you're going to see snippets of 7 of us flying. The pilot you'll hear talking us through it, and you'll have to look for me. I'm pretty easy to spot. And you may have to cover your ears for one part. Remember, we're all teachers, so we're having fun.
Relax the back pressure now. I'm ready to get set. Hard left, 3, 2, 1, hard left all the way.
feel it?
back pressure. Now we're going to spin it to the left. Ready, Rachel? It's going to be full back stick, all the way back to the head. Wait, wait, wait. Full back stick. Now, full back stick, full left pedal. There's a spin. Forward on the stick now, right rudder. The right rudder. Straighten it up. Tighten your stomach up and pull. Back to level. Woo! What'd you think of that one? That was neat. Okay. We're falling like a rock when we do that. And basically, it's important to know what's causing it and how to recover from it. And pull it up. Nice and high.
Math teacher.
Really high. Relax the back pressure now. And hard left. Ready? Get set. Go hard left. Roll it all the way over. Nice. That's it. That's fantastic or what? Oh, that is incredible. That's so cool. That was beauty too. That was going down.
Watch his teeth. Airport color. Watch his teeth.
Push. Okay, start letting it loose.
Up, he's going to do a teeter. Lost his water
Gotta
bottle.
get the thing to. No! That was good. Oh, you got the water bottle. I got it. There you go. Left side.
So after you go to the left side, the water bottle takes some time.
More. There you go. Keep going.
And we could keep going on and on and on. But that's part of our training. We're learning how to fly. We're learning how to do those maneuvers, but and also learning what zero G feels like and also what negative G feels like.
And they let you control that spin?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was funny though, because often the kids will ask me, well, what was your favorite thing to do? Was it the barrel roll with loop? I'm like, no. Because what they did, for those that could handle it, we did what's called a cartwheel, and basically spun the airplane from kind of like tail over, thank you. And that's what I loved. It was lots of fun. But in addition to that, we also spent some time out at Mojave. We spent a lot of time at Mojave out at National Test Pilot School, in which we're learning lots of new things there. I talked about Maston and how Maston is creating these spaceships that are basically carrying cargo. That's what it looks like there. That's what their hangar looks like in Mojave. And what's interesting about this is that especially the high school kids, they pick up immediately and say, hey, they look like me. I could do this. And it has been real inspirational for kids to go into those engineering fields. X-Corps, I told you about X-Corps, one of the companies, that's the one with the two-seater. That's what they look like. You can see their spacecraft. Actually, that's their X-rocket plane over there. They do a lot of modeling. I'm over in the bottom. I was having fun in the rocket plane. I really wanted them to fly it, but they're like, no. In our travels, we've met a lot of legends of flight. This happens to be Dick Rutan, Burt Rutan, and we can go on and on. Legends in aeronautics that have made history. And I'm just sitting with them going, wow, I'm just a teacher. But a teacher that's going to bring all this back to the classroom throughout the United States. So when we were out in Mojave in training, we heard that Virgin Galactic was going to test fly that airplane that carries the spacecraft. So we got up at 2:30 in the morning, packed everything up, got out to the airstrip for 4:30 where they were beginning to roll everything out. So that's us loading in the van, and it was a beautiful sight to see. One of the first flights. We also spent a lot of time out at NASA Dryden. Here is where you have the spacecraft at the bottom. Was used recently, in fact, on April 17th. It was used to fly the space shuttle through over Washington, D.C. to its final home. You know, it's interesting that the space shuttle flew in on the April 17th going to the Smithsonian, and yet April 30th is going to be that new era of spaceflight and that commercial spaceflight. So that's the aircraft that does that. And in that aircraft is also where they transport the astronauts too. So I had to have a little fun playing pilot. But that's what inside that aircraft looks like. Also, we'll be spending a lot of time at Ames Research Center. I know the thing on the bottom is It's one of the trainings I get to actually look forward to, I think. A centrifuge, it should be interesting, but I'll be out there quite a bit at NASA Ames this summer. We've also spent a lot of time in wind tunnels, practicing skydiving and skydiving techniques in the wind tunnels, and that's actually lots of fun. You can see me there. And we also learned about packing parachutes. How do we jump out of an airplane? And that's actually my first jump there. I was jumping actually with members of the Russian skydiving team. They were crazy. They were lots of fun, but wow. We've also spent a lot of time down at Kennedy Space Center, both at the facilities and also with training that has occurred. And in fact, I talked to you about the distraction training, because again, if you're flying experiments and you have all these feet that are floating around you if you're in Virgin Galactic, you need to be able to focus on what you're going to do. So over there, the airplane over the corner is one of the ways they do distraction training. They do actually do several trainings in there. But basically, they put you in this aircraft, this little aircraft that doesn't fly anywhere. And it's all closed in, it's dark. You have no idea what they're doing outside you. So what they were doing to me, I had no idea, is they were spinning me. They were spinning me, spinning me, spinning me, spinning me, and then I had to go through these series of maneuvers and trying to get buttons and trying to pick things up, and I was like, I know that pencil's there, I have to pick that pencil up, but I couldn't get it. It was quite interesting for a training procedure.
Is that like a link trainer?
Some of them are link trainers. Yeah. So some of the next things I know I have is the centrifuge training. I've already done zero-G flights. Zero-G flights is an airplane that basically flies parabolas and gives you a feeling of what zero-G looks like. Basically, as you're going up, you have a lot of force on you. When it banks over is when you're in free fall and you're in zero-G. And you're in that for about 30 seconds. And they do those parabolas, about 30 of them in a row. The first parabola I flew, it's like, okay, I can do this. This is going to be cool. So I said, okay, I am going to just kind of float. What did I do? I tried to swim. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was instinct or what. All right, I'm swimming. The legs are kicking. The arms are kicking. And I wasn't getting anywhere. The second parabola I did, I'm like, okay, I got this deal. So what I do is I pushed myself off the ground, and I pushed myself off like this. Is that hard? No, I pushed myself off like that. I slammed into the ceiling. And I'm like, oh, this is going to take a little while. But that was a lot of fun. So that's some of the trainings that we have coming up.
How many years have you been training for this?
Two, and they're predicting our flight will be approximately in 2 years. That's when they're predicting that the commercial spacecraft are going to be ready to fly, with the exception of SpaceX. The other ones that I showed you, Virgin Galactic, X-Corp. So I'm here to talk about Earth Day. So what does commercial spaceflight have to do with Earth Day? It actually has quite a bit to do with it. First of all, these commercial spacecraft are going to open space up to everyone, which means that there's a lot more research that can be done, and anybody, even everyone here in the audience, can go. In addition to that, it's a lot less expensive. So researchers, schools, Hartland Elementary School, universities, high schools can actually fly experiments into space and get the results back very quickly. In addition to that, unique capabilities, fly on demand, rapid turnaround, human can be a part of it. With the experiment that we have going up to right now to the International Space Station, we have an experiment going up on cells, and it's actually looking at the growth of It's looking at if you put parathyroid hormone on bone cells, osteoclasts, will it actually help stop bone loss? That's the research they're doing. Here's the problem. It takes them, by the time we get the experiment loaded, the cells all packed up, get them down to Houston, get them loaded onto the spacecraft and up into space, it's 5 weeks. Within 5 weeks, there's a very good possibility our cells are going to be dead. Whereas with commercial spaceflight, load it up, put it in the spacecraft, up it goes, down it goes, you have it. That's what we're talking about, that fast of a turnaround. In fact, they're predicting that some of these commercial space flights can launch 4 launches in one day with the same vehicle. Up, down, refuel, up, down, refuel.
Is that, do you see UFOs? Are you a UFO? At that speed that they say UFOs?
No, UFOs are unidentified flying objects. They would be identified because they still have to be able to report their flight paths and where they're going.
Speed is like,
It's fast. It's fast. If you think about it, the space shuttle travels at 17,500 miles per hour to get out of the Earth's atmosphere. So from the research standpoint, there's a lot more research that could be done, but even more important, there's a part of our atmosphere that people don't know a lot about. And scientists have called it the ignorosphere. And if you Google it, you'll see it's a real word. But basically, as you can see, the ignorosphere is an area that you can only get there, you have to get there using a rocket. It's too high for weather balloons, but yet too low for satellites. So there's the space that's in between. It's about 55 miles to 80 miles up in that space. And you can see it covers the mesosphere and the upper stratosphere. There's not a lot known about that area. And researchers are very interested in finding out more information. In fact, if you read the bottom, it says much of what is known about the upper atmosphere comes from the measurements collected during more than 100 re-entries by space shuttles since the first launch of Columbia. So there's a lot to learn in that area that's called the ignorosphere. And it's a real big movement in Earth scientists right now to try to find more information about our planet and that area. So you may have noticed that my presentation was called Dreams and Heroes. The reason why is because it's always been my dream to fly in space. When I was about your age, I was sitting in Barkhamsted Elementary School, where I went to school, and the principal there, Mr. Marizzi, basically gathered everybody into the gymnasium, just like here, and we were all gathered around like this 21-inch screen TV to watch the first shuttle launch. I will always remember that, and from that day on, I knew I wanted to go to space. So I applied to NASA. I got into the final rounds. Out of 18,000 applications, I got into the final rounds, but wasn't one of the 3 educator astronauts selected. So I tried this route, and I got selected. So basically, if you have a dream, you don't give up on a dream. You keep trying until you get there. Because for all of you, it takes that dedication. That when you're told no, you can't do it, yeah, you can. You just have to keep trying. There's no such word as no. And sometimes you do have to take a risk taker. Be a risk taker. I have a 7-year-old at home. Number one question I get from parents my age is, oh, you're gonna fly? What about your family? Yeah, that's true. But what would I say also if I didn't fly and I refused the opportunity? You go after your dreams, you go after the research, and you try to inspire others to go into STEM education. Education is huge for me. When I graduated from Regional 7, there's 2 things that were on my mind. Education and science, of course space science in particular. And I've been always trying to find the way to blend the 2. And by being a teacher in space, I get that opportunity. Because I know I go train on vacations, but I get to go back into the classrooms and inspire others. And that's what it's about. Attitude, yep, you have to have the right attitude. The attitude that you can say, no, I don't know how to fly a barrel roll, but I'm sure gonna try. Or the attitude of, it's gorgeous outside, I don't wanna do my homework, but I'm still gonna get it done and do it. Because that's what it's about. And also the motivation. That motivation, keep trying, keep going, no matter how hard it gets, is you keep going at it. So I look at it this way. We create tomorrow by what we dream today. And whoever thought that any one of you in this audience can go into a space 20, 30 years ago? But in about 2 years from now, it's going to be a reality. and you're going to see those spaceports being used. You're going to see those commercial space airplanes, spacecraft taken off. So that is the story about teachers in space. Do you have any questions? Yeah.
Was the application process like?
The application process was all online to begin with, in which we had to put in a resume. We had several essays we had to answer. We had lessons to put in, etc. There was a big review panel that looked at them. They narrowed them down, and then they started with phone interviews. And they started narrowing the pool down that way.
And then live interviews, or?
Later on. Yep.
Don't get any ideas, Priscilla.
I'm not doing a barrel roll.
Barrel roll's easy. Actually, barrel roll's easy. That's not as much fun as I thought. It looks like great in the sky, but it's like, oh, that was kind of boring. Any other questions? Yeah.
What subjects do you teach?
I am the STEM coach at Annie Fisher STEM Magnet School, so I am responsible for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and what we do is we blend them all together. Because in today's society, I used to work at NASA, Langley Research Center, we didn't just do science, we didn't just do engineering, you do it all together, so you apply it. So my background is in science, my degrees are in science and in education, but it's that STEM portion that we look at.
Who's funding your
Training.
doing?
Good question. There is the Space Frontier Foundation, who works with many companies and industries across the nation that working together and funding the teachers, along with the commercial spaceflight agencies, I should say commercial spaceflight companies that have donated flights for the teachers to fly. The goal is we're called the Pathfinders, in that we're blazing the way for hundreds of teachers to follow us and go into space and then bring these experiences back into the classroom.
What kind of experiments do schools put on these shuttles or these flights? For instance,
Well, I already told you about the one like we're doing up to the International Space Station. We had an experiment that flew on the very final space shuttle flight last year, and we were looking at seed germination. So anything from seed germination to cell research. I've seen elementary schools put proposals in, what happens to a marshmallow in space?
Gets eaten.
But it's those questions that get you wondering. Other questions of, well, I use magnets all the time at school. What would happen if it's in space? What does a magnetic field look like in space? So it could be questions as sophisticated as looking at cell research and that type of thing, to questions as simple as, what happens to a marshmallow in space? So it depends upon the age and what they're looking at. Yeah?
I always have so many questions. What is your meal for your 3 meals? What are you eating? Are you drinking, or what?
We will be eating and drinking just about anything, the same things that we have here down there. It's all contained. It's all contained. And in fact, our flights, depending on our flights will probably be short enough that we may not even eat or drink in space. Because remember, these suborbital flights we're talking about are similar to the beginning Mercury program, where they're up and down.
Like time, an hour?
Anywhere from 2 to 4 hours is what they're saying.
But does your food fly around?
Yes.
Can you eat spaghetti?
Heather.
Yes, your food does. Now that would be a good science experiment. I could see an elementary student asking, what happens to spaghetti in space? But yes, there are foods that you can eat in space. A lot of times they avoid things with breads because a lot of the crumbs will get all over and into things, and you don't want that. When I was on a zero-G flight, I did get to play with M&Ms, and we're throwing M&Ms and trying to catch it. I never caught one. It's much harder than it looks. Or even the waters and how the water goes into balls and trying to catch those. I didn't catch mine either. But it was lots of fun.
How has the ending of the space program impacted this? Has it helped it or sped it up?
Well, you can look at it this way. When the space shuttle stopped flying, it wasn't bringing astronauts up to anymore. So the only way we can get up to the International Space Station was the Soyuz. The Russian Soyuz, or the space company, basically doubled their price of us sending an astronaut up. So what do you have to do? You need to find some way to be able to do it, to make it happen. So I would say it definitely has helped, gotten some attention. However, these companies were started before then, and they were going this direction because, like Virgin Galactic feels that there's a big market out there for space tourism. And if they can get people to fly in space and open those doors, well, why not space hotels? They're already being built now. But also, what's happened is the space tourism has led into more understandings for the research and opportunities for research to be able to flow. Yep.
Who's starting these companies that are going into space? Are they NASA people that are engineers from NASA and pilots from NASA that are unemployed, that are educated engineers that are, who's funding these companies?
It depends which company you talk about. If you start looking online and see who these funders are, well, you know Virgin Galactic. Branson, I mean, right there. Same with SpaceX was another gentleman like that. But let's look at, if you look at X-Corp, those are 4 people that started the company that basically lost their jobs, not at NASA, but at somewhere else, and they said, you know what, we want to go to space. And the only way we're going to go to space is if we do it ourselves. And that's what they did. So these are not NASA funded, these are not government funded.
Venture capital. I mean, obviously people are investing in this.
People are investing in that. Yep. So I mean, this is our world of the future. Everybody asks, well, is NASA still involved? Yeah, NASA's still involved. Definitely. They partnered again. They have a contract with SpaceX to resupply. So they're looking at these suborbital vehicles, these SpaceX, as ways to get things into space as they're developing and looking onto Mars and asteroids and beyond.
I was going to say there's always been a curiosity. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, I think National Geographic sponsored a future space ride. And I think they looked for maybe 10 or 20 people to plop down a $50,000 deposit. And our neighbor, Edith Leopold, was one of those people. She trotted in and put down her $50,000. She was going to go in space.
Hey, you know,
It never happened. She got her money back.
she may have the opportunity now because this is
Not anymore.
this isn't science.
She's in heaven.
Okay. Well, I say this isn't science fiction we're talking. This is about reality, and you're going to see the first step of the reality a week from today, on the 30th, as SpaceX takes that historic flight to the International Space Station. And what better way to inspire students to go into the space-related field than flying their teachers and putting them back in the classroom. So, yeah.
How do you divide your time between your teaching job and everything else you're doing?
Oh, I can say I'm glad my husband's not here. he would have one way of saying how I divide my time. It's not easy. Family is always at the front for it. But it's not easy trying to find that balance between training, between family, between school. In addition to that, I'm also involved quite a bit on the state level. In fact, I'm the president of the Connecticut Science Teachers Association, so I'm involved with other things beyond. So trying to find that balance can be quite tough sometimes.
But you're traveling a lot. I mean, you say you're going around the country, you're training in the Mojave Desert. Do you have substitutes that cover your classroom? Or?
It's a good question. Very rarely do I miss classroom time. Okay. Most of the training is done during vacations or during the summer, which is important because if you have a teacher, the best place for that teacher to be is in that classroom. So I don't miss a lot of classroom time. It's mostly those vacations, you know. While some other people may be lying on a beach, I may be just jumping out of airplanes instead. So that's how they try to do it, because again, if you want to inspire the students in the classroom, you got to be there, and you got to take those experiences with you. Well, go ahead.
When you're in a spaceship, it looks very small. Does each one of you have a specific duty?
I don't know yet.
Oh, because you only went up and came down?
I haven't gone up yet. I will be
you
going.
haven't been
Nope,
up?
I haven't gone up yet. So I'm actually an astronaut in training. I haven't gone up yet, so those specific details I do not know yet, and depending on which spacecraft we'll fly on, I don't know how much space I will have either. But you know, when you're talking about space, I've been inside the mock-ups of the space shuttle, et cetera, where they train down in Johnson. There's not a lot of room there.
But
Not
don't
a
you
lot.
have to do something? So sit there?
Yes, I will be doing something. A big part of what I'm going to be doing, though, is attention to student experiments that are going to be flying, and being able to take that information and then spread it out again across the United States through whatever venue, whether it happens to be TV, whether it happens to be video conferencing, whatever it happens to be.
You've got a great personality.
Thank you.
Will you go up more than once or just once?
Maybe. We don't know. We don't, as I say, we don't know who's going to fly first. We don't know which company we're going to be flying on, and we don't know if we're going to be going more than once either. But what we're in the process of doing is actually training teachers. So this summer, when I'm out at NASA Ames, I'll be one of the people that are running a workshop and teaching teachers how to design experiments to fly in space. So they're going to go back and then teach their students how to fly experiments in space. And that's what it's about.
What age group are you teaching now?
I work primarily with kindergarten through 8th grade. So,
And are you keeping in touch with your graduates so they're going to find out when you go up? Because I'm sure they're...
graduates of Regional 7 or?
Oh, well, no, the kids that you taught 2 years ago who knew you were selected. I mean, you must have a way of keeping in touch
Yeah,
with
we do.
kids.
We do. We keep in touch quite a bit, so they know exactly what's going on, where I am in the process of the training, what I've done, and some of the teachers said, look at me, go, what now? Lots of fun.
Do you have a website?
I don't have a website yet, and you were talking about balance. How do you keep that balance? I haven't been able to do that one yet.
This would be great if local people could follow you in your travels and your experiments and your findings and your outcomes.
I've had that recommendation a lot. That's just the one thing I haven't found time to be able to do yet. But yeah.
Rachel, what are some of the projects you do with your kids? Hands-on projects. I think you probably do some hands-on stuff.
We do a tremendous amount of hands-on things. Let me describe a few for you. Let me describe kindergarten.
I was thinking more along the 8th grade, but...
We can do 8th grade too. Some days, you know, those can be equivalent. But think about it in a kindergarten example. We always, where I teach, we know what the state standards are. We know the framework. We know what we have to cover. How we do it, though, is slightly different because we have the students generating questions and that's what we use to follow and drive the instruction. So the students in kindergarten had to look at houses and structures around the world. That's just part of the state and the state document. So the kids were looking at homes in the desert. They were just looking at pictures of the deserts, and the kindergartners wanted to know, how do you put windows in sand? They're seeing the houses, they see the brown houses, they're like, how do you do that? So what we did is we had them take Lincoln logs, little Lincoln log windows, and a big pile of sand and let them try it. And from a teacher standpoint, that was quite funny because they couldn't get them to stand in, and but we turned that into a learning experience, and then we looked at the properties of earth materials. What's the properties of sand? What's the properties of soil? What's the properties of clay? They looked at those. They created their own recipes for mortar. They made their mortar. We built stone walls. We had little demolition balls that we tried to knock down their stone walls with. And they found out that, the recipe didn't work, so we had them go back and redesign. There's where you see the science and the engineering process woven in. So that is on a kindergarten level. On a more of a 6th grade level, they were studying plate tectonics, and we actually had them building different structures out of different types of wood and putting them on shake tables and knocking them down. So not only were they looking at the structures themselves and how they hold the force, but they were also looking at the strengths of the materials. So we were looking at balsa wood, we were looking at basswood, we were looking at all these different types and testing the strengths of these different types. So that gives you a couple of examples. I will say for both those examples I gave you, in the kindergarten, I had mortar in my hair that I literally had to cut out because I couldn't get it out. And with the 6th grade example, they were building their structures, and we also looked at height and the differences the height makes for their structures too. And I happened to lean over a project and I had a vest on, didn't realize it, and the glue got in the zipper, and my zipper couldn't go up, couldn't go down. So my poor husband's like, oh no, not again. The life of a science teacher. That's what it's about. So again, you can see how the questions of science and engineering and mathematics are kind of all woven together, regardless of the grade level. But, well, thank you for coming out. I greatly appreciate it.
It's exciting, and it's just wonderful to have you here and going into space. Here's one of our Hartland Land Trust decals.
I'll put it on the
Take wherever you would like.
Wait a second, you patch That's right, we need to take it into space.
Thank you again. Help yourself to refreshments.
Thank you.
We'll all be here for a little